Stories are how we share and preserve the past. Captured within the walls of Cape Cod's historic treasures are stories of its people, their traditions and values, their entrepreneurial spirits, their hopes and dreams. If our walls could talk, what intriguing tale would we hear?
Think of the house you live in as a storybook of history, romance, events, and people. Open this book and these tales come alive, enabling you to see through the walls, the windows, and doors into a colorful pageantry of the past. Claire Baisley, author and Cape Cod historian.
Listen closely, for our walls do talk. By the 1600s, Cape Cod was home to a diverse group of people. From the original families, the Native American Wampanoags and Nausetts, to the Pilgrims, who met them at East Ham's First Encounter Beach, they sought safe harbors and fertile ground. Along with other adventurous arrivals sailing across the seas, these hardy souls spread out, establishing settlements along the 65-mile length of the Cape Cod Peninsula. Across Sham Pond in Sandwich, beyond a gentle knoll, a dig site reveals clues to a few of these early settlers.
The property is 2.5 acres, and this is up front in the front corner of the property. Out back in the opposite corner is out by Sham Pond, and that's the quintessential first period 17th century location for a home. So you had a knoll for the site, you had an upland, you had fresh water, and the river that went out to the Great Marsh, out to the ocean, that was considered navigable. So it had all the three things that you would look for as a first settler in the area. This is where the house used to be, on top of the knoll. When we found this row of stones and we started chasing it, and then it started going around a corner, we realized we found a foundation. But it wasn't a foundation, it was a cellar hole. And then we found the amethyst. There is no amethyst on Cape Cod. It's probably used for healing purposes, ceremonial purposes. This is a native bead that was found in the site a couple years back. That is a native burnishing stone. And if you look at the opposite side, you can see all the wear that was used to burnish pottery, but you can feel it in your hand that it's so smoothed out. This is a gold brooch. It has chevrons, well-tooled.
The dig site offered another surprise. By the early 18th century, navigation via waterways declined. Families preferred living closer to town. The one-room abode near the pond had been moved from the rear of the property to the street side. Keyes discovered that his home office was actually the original 17th century homestead.
This structure, which is 12.4 wide by 18 long, is the same size as the foundation cellar hole that we've been digging on for a few years.
And there were more secrets, more stories.
In 2010, we purchased the house. It was December, and it was in awful condition. It hadn't been lived in for about 15 years. As they took down the ceiling upstairs above the room that we're in now, they found hand-hewn beams, and they weren't hand-hewn beams in 1817. So at that point, I called in a local historian who brought in a local archaeologist, David Wheelock, and he's seeing all the numbering and the wide beams, and he says, well, at this point, I would bet the farm the house is about at least 1650. Good thing we were sitting in a short attic, because my jaw would have hit the ground harder. When we first bought the house, a few people said, oh, you bought the old Lincoln house, and I didn't understand why.
Keyes consulted the town archivist, who pulled the file on the Lincoln house, also known as the Morning Wreath House.
And she says, yeah, it has something to do with the carving over the front door, the swag that was put on to memorialize Abraham Lincoln's assassination. I went, oh, okay, well, why? Leah Whitley bought this house in 1827 in downtown Sandwich. She came from the South, and she had married a white gentleman from England named Thomas Whitley, and they have a child. There was a death in the family of Thomas Whitley. His wife, Leah Whitley, sold the grocery store down in the Carolinas and then came up to Massachusetts. Well, there was a challenge for Miss Whitley, and this legally, all her family members said that she couldn't sell property because she was property. They were claiming that she was formerly a slave. She passed away around 1850-ish. It was willed to James Whitley, that is the son of Leah. And we're pretty sure it's James Whitley that put the carving over the front door after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln in 1865. And the African American community mourned even more because he was the great emancipator. We have a picture from 1928, and you can see that that carving is there, the motif over the front door. And when I sent the write-up to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Association, they said that this is the only memorial camouflage carving that they know of on a private home. This house speaks to us because it has so much history. So many people have lived and died here. There's so much going on. It envelops you, which is wonderful. My friend who sold us the house, she says, "Tom, you didn't buy this house, it bought you."
Tom and Melissa Key's oldest daughter, Madeline, has also enjoyed her time in the Lincoln House.
So one story that I was always told from when I was little, which I always thought was so cool, was actually from the original room in the office. On the beams, there are actually markings that the original owners would put up there to keep witches and like evil spirits from coming into the homes, because they were very superstitious and they believed that those markings would keep all of like the bad or the evil away.
I'm Chiquita Banana and I've come to say bananas.
The walls of Cape Cod homes are bursting with stories. One such tale plays out today on our nation's breakfast tables. 150 years ago, sailing on his schooner, the Telegraph, Wellfleet Sea Captain Lorenzo Dow Baker discovered the delicious bananas of Jamaica and brought them home. The cargo was a big hit, earning Baker the title Banana King. Baker's company, the Boston Fruit Company, became the United Fruit Company, now Chiquita Brands International.
I'm Chiquita Banana and I've come to say bananas have to ripen in a certain way.
Captain Baker spent the winters working at his Jamaican banana properties. Summers, he returned to Belle Vernon in Wellfleet, welcoming family and friends. 21st century owners Jay Bombara and Allison Riley Bombara are fascinated with tales of his life.
And the story goes that he would hang bananas when he was in Wellfleet from the porch, this porch, and any passerbyers, neighbors, whatever could come by and they could help themselves to a banana.
He also contributed significant money to developing Wellfleet as a summer tourist place. He spent a lot of money funding the stained glass window at the Methodist Church here in town. And if you look closely, you can see a bunch of bananas that has been incorporated in the stained glass.
Again, he was the Banana King, but he was in all kinds of businesses. He would take people back and forth on the ships, but he also helped Wellfleet develop its tourism. And one of those things he did is he bought an old mercantile wharf, which was down on the corner of Kendrick Avenue by Mayo Beach, and he built it into a lovely Chequasit Neck Inn.
Jay and Allison believe there is a strong connection between their upstairs bedrooms and the inn.
We have heard that the house was used for overflow when they had too many guests or visitors for the Chequasit Neck Inn. So they may have put people there as well. And still on the doors, on the inside of the door, is a very long hook and a little eyelet on the door itself, and it leaves the door open about that much. And so what that presumably would have done with a screen door is allow the air to flow through, because again, at this time, there's no air conditioning.
Embedded in the walls of Belle Vernon are links to its intriguing past.
So, because it's such a large house, and probably because he was a very wealthy man, he had what they called at the time an annunciator. And it's a device that, about this big, but it was like a call system, and it had little arrows, and it would point to the room, and it was wired for that time appropriately, so that if you pressed a button, that it would ring a bell, and the arrow would turn and tell the servants what room the person was calling in. So I've tried it. It doesn't work here anymore, but I keep pushing the button, nothing happens.
Another treasure was mounted in plain sight.
I don't know what you call it, but there's a what looks like a framed porcelain plaque with a little
It's the Irish blessing.
Irish blessing, you know, white with the green lettering, cute little thing. Oddly, slightly crooked, which is probably why it caught my eye one day. I thought, well, let me at least straighten it out. Well, it's on there too tight. Well, maybe I'll just take it off. And then there's a little kind of button pull on the top of it. And I pulled it straight up, and it turns out that it's actually was just hiding a whole series of keys. We haven't moved any of them. It's all the original keys, skeleton keys, other keys for the house.
One of Allison's favorite places is the porch, which her brother restored.
The ceiling of the porch, and the original ceiling was this color as well, is blue, and it's referred to as haint blue, which is a Creole word, I think, for haunt. And if there's any bad spirits that are going to come and haunt your house, they look at the ceiling and they think it's either sky and they're going to go straight through it, or they think it's water and they're afraid of water. So it keeps them out either way. And I think it's a beautiful color, plus I think it's a charming tradition.
So like all houses, not just old houses, eventually you need to redo the roofs. I was, looking at the roof to just say, hey, I got it done. But I also took a picture. After I took it, I was thinking, wow, I know this house has been through a lot. And I was thinking, I wonder what it looked like. We have been going through the attics for a long time now. But when I opened a drawer, and there was just one photo in the drawer, and it was almost exactly the same viewpoint as the picture I'd taken. And so I just felt this real connection to the house in that way and the people that had lived here. And I think we still do. We still, the Bakers are in a way here. I mean, I don't know if they're ghosts, but they're here looking over us. I think they like what we're doing.
I think so too. Very happy vibes from this house.
One puzzling incident caused the couple to think that perhaps Reuben Baker, the last Baker to live in Belle Vernon, lent a helping hand.
Baker Avenue goes two different ways, so only in Wellfleet, I guess, which is confusing enough. But I wanted to fix the sign because it was so overgrown and it was bent. And I went to straighten the sign out, and I looked at it, and I needed an Allen wrench, which is just a little tiny wrench with a 90-degree turn. I went into the basement and I said, Reuben, I need an Allen wrench. And I'm not making this story up. There was one Allen wrench, and it was sitting on the tool bench, and it fit exactly. So not only do the walls talk, but
they answer.
The spirits are there too, I think. I'm a very, and Allison is as well, strong supporter of preservation, and obviously you've got preservation of the natural environment, but I think the preservation of the built environment is just as important. It tells the story of people, of us, of our community, and it's what continues to bind the community.
As the Cape grew, so did the Yankee spirit. Merchant captains sailed in schooners, conquering the global import-export trade. In West Harwich, the former homes of these captains mirror their entrepreneurial spirit.
Captain's Row is a 1.1-mile stretch of Route 28 between the Dennisport line and the Herring River. And it is a signal piece of land because it encapsulates in this short stretch a veritable museum of American architecture from 1740 to 1940. The house that we're in now was built by my great-great-grandfather around the time of his wedding in 1852 to Marinda Smith. It's been in the family ever since. My wife and I are the 5th consecutive generation to live in the house, and we love living here. It's a home that's filled with artifacts and memories and loving connections between the generations, and it's wonderful to be part of our link in that chain. Actually, this house was the illustrated house in Cape Cod architecture by Claire Baisley of what an archetypal Greek Revival house is. And it has 4 hand-hewn fluted Doric columns. My great-grandfather was named Osmond Berry. He was born in Liverpool on his father's clipper ship in early 1865. And he led what I consider to be a kind of fascinating, romantic, archetypal life of the sea captain at the end of the age of sail. He grew up here in West Harwich in this house. And at the age of 15, he ended up being a first mate on a around-the-world journey on a ship called the Hercules. And as a 15-year-old, when the captain died halfway back, he had to assume command of a major, probably at the time was equivalent of a multi-million-dollar cargo freight, and also make sure that the remains of the captain were given over. Oh, did I mention that the captain was his father? So this was kind of one of these things that just changes a life of an adolescent. And I remember him as an amazing man who obviously knew the backstop of his life. So the echoes of Osmond's life still resonate with me and with my daughter today.
The amazing tale of Caleb Chase, another remarkable sea captain, started here in the home of his grandfather, Job Chase.
It's the house right on the river. It used to be called the Irish Pub. Chase and Sanborn was a company started by Job Chase's grandson, Caleb Chase. He basically was running a coffee cartel, and his genius was to pack the coffee in hermetically sealed cans, giving everybody delivering to their door fresh coffee. It had never been done before. It's still around. It's still a national brand. It's available in tens of thousands of grocery stores nationwide.
While many of these captains' homes have been lovingly restored and cherished by their owners, the 1780s Georgian-style two-story Captain Job Chase house awaits its fate.
It was a magnificent building. It fell into disrepair with the prior or the last owner who had health issues. It was used as a restaurant. People may recall it as Bishop's Terrace.
Efforts are underway to save this important piece of Americana that connects our colonial past to the present.
I think it's important to keep in mind when we talk about these issues of these old family homes and the great stories. I think it's wonderful to be able to think about your own ancestors and what they did. It's more like, wow, I've got a lot to live up to. And I think the more we embrace our heritage as something we can actually live up to, moments of great achievement and high ambition, and I love that stuff. So that's the way I look at it.
At the old Sandwich Glass Factory, skilled craftsmen, known as gaffers, create wondrous pieces of glass. One couple discovered they are restoring a link to a magical era in the town's history.
In the early 1800s, a gentleman named Jarves came to this area because he thought it would be a great place to build a glass factory. He purchased land on this what is now street from Mr. Nye for workers' housing. This was a working house. It's always been a working house, and we're working people. So it will reflect that. There's 4 fireplaces in this house, so there's 2 chimneys, and the chimneys, they look askew. They're on an angle. But if you look at them, you see they didn't sag. It's very deliberate that they were built that way. And back in the day, chimneys were often built on a bit of a bias to keep the witches out. So, and we don't have any witches, so it must be working. On this particular wall here, you can already see there's like 1, 2, 3. There's like 4 different wallpapers here. But this one, I was scraping, and there's like these beautiful ladies in full gowns with red velvet dresses all appearing out of the wall. It was so exciting. Some of the first things we found were when my husband was pulling back the old walls, and because we needed to put insulation in. And there, inside the walls, like that I don't even understand how they could be there, except if people had put them there intentionally. We found these gorgeous, delicate little sewing scissors, and we found this music roll. And it looks like a piano roll, but it's smaller. It's from something that predates player pianos called an organelle or an organette. And it was just a box that then had a paper roll in it. If you looked really, really close on it, it says that it's the Kushka polka. In the walls themselves, we would find, they would use newspapers sometimes, I guess, for insulation. Our most exciting discovery was when we pulled back a wall right here. And there, glued to this panel here, is a newspaper from 1869. And you can read it. It is a local newspaper. It talks about stores opening down the street, but it also has this big focus on women's health. And it is the worst advice you've ever heard. We think it's really important to save these houses because there's a soul to Cape Cod, It's not just the exterior of these houses. And the idea that you can walk down my street and realize these were workers' houses, take a right and you can see where the factory was with its smokestacks and its lead rooms. I didn't know any of this before I came to this house. This house informed me about this crazy lost part of Cape Cod history.
Brimming with legends and lore of old Cape Cod, this rich treasure trove of historic homes serve as tangible reminders of the past. Once lost, their tales may be forgotten. Cape Cod's historic past needs our protection now and forevermore.
What's important to know in an old house is this is not a museum. The Historic Association has the pieces of furniture, etc. We don't want it to be a museum. It's our home, and we treat it that way.
Belle Vernon preserves the legacy of Lorenzo Dow Baker, the Banana King. Baker is also credited as instrumental in promoting and advancing the tourist industry in Wellfleet, as well as throughout the Cape.
You also have a house that hopefully is going to be here for another 400 years. And that you're a piece of that puzzle and you can leave your mark. Not ruining, but enhancing it for the next generations. Hopefully my family will keep it for many, many, many generations. And so maybe they'll call it the Keys House someday.
The Lincoln House pays tribute to the 16th President of the United States. The archaeological dig site on the property continues to uncover important links to Cape Cod's colonial past.
They're evidence of a fabric of life that is only gone insofar as we don't see the people around. We see the residues of their efforts, their skills, their commitments, their ambitions, and these homes are traces of a way of living and a dedication to a kind of a futurity that we no longer really share. And so once you lose a piece of that fabric, you can't weave back into it the same thing. You cannot create the patina, you cannot recreate the hand-hewn qualities of these buildings. These are all unique.
The Captain Barry House pays tribute to the entrepreneurial spirit of enterprising Cape Codders who ventured out to create a global market, bringing prominence and recognition to the Cape.
You know, when I heard what the title of this documentary was going to be, someone said, if our walls could talk. I said, but our walls do talk in so many ways. They talk in old newspapers, they talk in wallpaper, they talk in musical devices, and they just talk in these incredible pieces of wood that they say so many things. I can't get enough of these walls. I just think they're delightful.
This Cape Cod cottage-style home honors the talented craftsmen who, by the 1850s, made the Sandwich Glass Factory one of the largest producers of glassware in the country. This is a worker's home currently being restored. These historic homes are the essence and soul of Cape Cod. Save today for tomorrow.